standard with these three bids currently that we have before us for evaluation. Unfortunately, they may not survive this new statute that will pass very, very soon. But there's got to be an energy policy that says that there's got to be some hooks. Otherwise, you know, the law states we evaluate bids, and if we believe it's prudent or imprudent, that's it. We can render based on engineering studies to say it's costly and it's imprudent. Then what? Then we're stuck with oil for the next 20 years. Like the lady points out, there's no deadline. There's no incentive to perform. Maybe it's different with DOD. DOD probably has a very strict mandate that it has to convert over. But with the policies that are in place now, with regulations that are in place now, with keeping the utilities healthy right now, because if we tie in all of this renewable energy to the grid and the grid is not healthy because finances and sales and revenues drop, then it's like a three-legged stool that falls over one side. I think all of those in combination have to make sense, and they have to be coordinated. Who does that coordination? It's for others out here to help engage in that discussion at this point. That's good poker.
Just a quick comment. I have some experience with Bob Cook and the initiatives, the efforts that have taken place in El Paso and accommodating the expansion of Fort Bliss. And I would highly recommend that Guam accept his invitation, because I think that there would be wise counsel in these coordination efforts from Bob Cook and his team at El Paso Economic Development Corporation.
In closing, I'd just like to say that we were at UOG just awarded a grant from the Office of Naval Research that is designed to begin this planning process. And this is why Battelle has been invited out immediately. And we hope to be working with everybody in this panel and elsewhere in the island. And this is really kind of the kickoff for that whole process. So we can't give a precise deadline on it, but we're certainly moving into the future rapidly here. I'd like to thank this panel. This has been a really, really great opportunity to hear some fresh, new ideas, and thank you.
You're not going to allow me one question?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's okay with me. They were flashing these no more time signs, but go ahead.
Well, I know we were talking about planning, and we're talking about developing a new community with the Marines coming here. I'd like to ask the question in the design and building of the dream of putting this new community in place. What are the efforts in this design and build and dream to build this new community that all these renewable energy that we're talking about today has been incorporated in those designs, and are they again included in building this community that will be a new community that will be built, and with the latest technology, the latest best practices in renewable energy? And as we talked about, the comment was made that we are very much comfortable with air conditioning here on our island, but we have to build buildings. I hear that the military, at least for the houses that are being built for the Marines, and I support comfortable quality of life surroundings for our military personnel. But with the price tag of almost $400,000 homes being built in this base, and Kin mentioned that it comes with a price. Does that price tag include the renewable energy or energy efficiency that are contemplated in this $10 billion buildup?
Captain.
Yeah, I think I can answer that. And I would tell you that there's a difference between the conservation piece and the sustainable design initiatives that go into the construction piece. Those are the megawatts. Now, the renewable energy are those things that you put back into the grid that reduce the requirement to use the fossil fuels to generate the power. When we first started the design efforts, the amount of energy that was going to be required was up about 80 megawatts. And what that was going to require was Ken putting another power generation source online. So, as we mentioned early on, that the island-wide power grid has a pretty high capacity, but the draw is less than that. So there's a factor of about 200% of the base load. And so what we've done through our design efforts to reduce that demand is get that requirement down to less than 20. And so therefore, there won't be a requirement for new energy generation. So that's a pretty big initiative so that, again, they don't have to build a new power source on the island to basically fuel the energy demands. For the renewable side, we put, solar hot water heaters are going to be incorporated. We're evaluating the cost effectiveness of saltwater air conditioning for the larger industrial facilities up in the new plants. And we're looking at some other opportunities for geothermal, not necessarily going down deep for the hot water, but drill down to the areas where you're above the actual aquifer, because there's above that there's a saline lens that's above the freshwater, but that is at a constant temperature of about 50 some odd degrees. So if you can pull that geothermal up, and that can help do some of the pre-cooling, so that you're using less energy to cool the spaces, because you're doing some pre-cooling at essentially no cost, because the groundwater that comes up, again, it's going to be saline, so it's not going to be used for drinking or anything. It won't have any impact on the aquifer. But those kind of initiatives do reduce the power demand. And so what we're talking about now is more transmission and distribution lines and aspects of the grid that can build in more efficiencies, allow for less line loss on the power distribution system. So we are doing those kinds of things. And our big driver was to make it so that there was no requirement for building new power generation, because again, that's the chiefest piece of power, is that you don't have to buy. So we are doing that. And so there's been a lot of effort for that sustainable design aspect, but not so much on the renewables, because there's not going to be as much of a requirement for renewable power generation. That's a separate issue that we're working. It's a longer-term commitment.
I would then like to suggest, because on the opening statement that Secretary Mitchell has said in his opening about this globalization and looking at the total aspect of what Department of Defense is looking at to do to impact all the communities, not only on Guam. I think that inside the Beltway, I think that there should be a thinking in this particular exercise, because as noted earlier, this is unprecedented. And I think that all the newest and brightest ideas that are coming out of Washington, maybe this might be the pilot program to engage in whatever federal grants that are being made available to other communities, that those grants will be made available for this Guam community build-up. And maybe it could be the showcase for the entire world to see. And this, because this is being pegged, at a $10 billion from the U.S. investment opportunity, $6 billion from Japan investment opportunity, and I think that with the collaboration of both the U.S. mines as well as the Japanese mines, I think that this is an opportunity that as we talk about renewable energy, that whatever grants, whatever new technology that is now being developed can be a pilot program here on our island, and that would be a win for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and a round of applause for our panel, and we're done.